A good example of what I'm trying to relate. Ownership. What is ownership? What does it mean to own something? No one can take it away from you. You have sole title over it. There was a place I worked for, to give you a practical example. I worked for this place. It was in the food industry. It was a donut shop, okay? I'm not gonna say the actual company name. It was a donut shop. And in this donut shop, I would work in the kitchen. I started out working in the kitchen, just frying the donuts, cleaning the pans, cleaning the mixers, stuff like that. And then I progressed to working the front counter and the register, dealing directly with customers, all that. So I was basically exposed to all the positions that this little donut mill had to offer. One day, I remember walking into work, and on the board they had a board that they posted everyone's schedule. It was like a little cork board type thing. And it said something to the effect of, please refer any grievances or any issues to your management, not the owners. It actually said the name of the owners. It said, I'll make up a name, not to Kathy, because it said this in permanent marker. It was in writing. It said, please stop referring to Kathy, as they are the owners and not the management. Thank you, whatever. And I remember that sign to this day, because I remember thinking, what was an odd thing to say. And I don't know the full details of everything behind the scenes, but the impression, at least, that I got was basically, in a word, in a manner of speaking, we're the owners. We can't be bothered with these petty management issues. We're just here to collect and leave. And I'm not talking crap, okay? I'm over it. I've been gone from that company. It was a small company. I've been gone for years. I have no bones, except that one thing, because it was memorable to me. We're the owners, not the management. Please refer to the management. But so it got me thinking, like, not just that time, but over the course of years, it got me thinking, what does ownership mean? What does it mean to own something? What do you mean by that? Is it a piece of paper? Is it title? And then I kind of went off into the weeds with that idea. And I'm like thinking more, labor, workers. Do workers own their labor? Do you, as a worker, as a contributor to the value of the company, do you own what you contribute? Do you own your time? Well, the whole idea of labor is that you surrender your time for the compensation of money. You own nothing. This sounds far out. I get it. This sounds far out. It sounds all philosophical and shit. You own nothing. We own nothing. No one owns anything. No one really owns it. Everything we have, we borrow. Why? Because everything we have is taken away. Degenerates. Goes away. In the grand scheme, if you really think about it. Really think about it. Not just like on paper. What do you really own? Do you own your time? If we own our time, why do we keep losing it? We have this quantity of time, like sand, and it just falls through our hand. It's taken away. We don't own it. I don't really own this truck. I really don't really own it. Like, not just philosophically or whatever, or like sort of esoterically. I really don't own it because it's owned by the bank, and I make payments to the bank who are my debtors. They own my debt. But even if that were paid off, do I own this truck really? Besides on paper? And what it got me thinking about is like, what merits ownership? What is it that ownership means? I think it's a myth. We're borrowers. We're stewards. We're hosts of things. We don't own them. That's how I see it in terms of business. I can't help but see it that way, is what I'm trying to say. Because that's how I see life. That's just my worldview. So in terms of business, when this sort of falls into the ether or out of the ether of philosophy or whatever, the application of it in terms of business would be that the owner, suppose I owned a business, do I really own it? Who owns it then? Who's the closest, at least? Who's the closest to owning it? If somebody did. If somebody did own it, who would be the closest? Well, what's the source of value for a business, for an enterprise? The source of value is the labor or services or the products that are rendered to the buying customer. That the source, the means of value. That's who owns it. If my contribution to that flow, that river, so to speak, of value is tiny, then I would think logically or fairly that my ownership, my title over that would likewise be small because my contribution is small. That's what's ideal. That's what's fair. Maybe democratic. I don't know how to put it. So it brought me back to that donut shop with those owners. Those owners, I can tell you this, and I'm not saying this in any kind of derogatory way. Like I said, I don't know the full story of the conduct of that business. I only can tell you what I saw. And I can tell you that what I saw was that some of the least contributing people were the owners. And that's just a dime a dozen. That's a dime a dozen. I've seen that all over. I've seen it in factories, fast food places, janitorial jobs. The owners are typically the least responsible for the actual value of the company, meaning the production of value. They sort of sit there as like vassal lords. But see, that's the culture, that's the goal. That's kind of like you've made it. In the American dream, you've made it when you no longer have to work. When you no longer have to contribute out of yourself, yet you are rewarded still. Possibly way more, actually way more than people who contribute. Your wealth makes wealth. I heard about a rich man who said, I think it was Warren Buffett, I don't know who it was. He was like giving advice to people on how to become rich. Basically, he said, don't work for money. I'm paraphrasing. Like, don't work for money, have your money work for you. What do you mean by that? Because you as an individual can only produce so much, because you have the obvious limitation of your time, your physical capacity, the ability for you to be places. You can only be so many places at once. You have limitations as one person, but your money doesn't. So, in order to become rich, the disparity between what you contribute and what you make grows. And that's the dream. To have others produce wealth for you so that you can kick back, yet getting rich. I get it. Okay. But that is fundamentally, as a principle, to me, egregiously unfair. And that's one of the features that, like, I want to change.